All right, gentlemen, you're welcome
Thank you.
to So Clinic. My name is Dr. Spirit Size, as you all know, and today we'll be talking about a very, very sensitive topic, and that is addiction. I have Mr. Paul with me, and I have Mr. Matthew.
It's a pleasure.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, we'll be talking about addiction, like I said,
Yeah.
how it has impacted our society, how it is impacting our young ones, even some elderly people. We just want to dissect this topic and see how our discussion today could help someone out there to free themselves from this demon called addiction. So, what do you have to say about addiction?
Okay. Basically, the way I look at addiction is extreme sense of um, reliance, extreme sense of dependency on certain lifestyle, certain substances. Extreme. I tend to choose that word carefully. Extreme sense of dependency. As we go on, I'll be able to break it down more.
What do you have to say?
Talking about addiction, to break it down, I can say addiction is a condition in which individual lifestyle has been enclosed in a certain way of operating or of living life.
So we will say that this condition, like you said, and you said some sense of dependency, we will say it is deliberate or intentional. What do you say?
Okay, I say there's no hard and fast rule to how one gets addicted because there are certain if I go back to my definition, sometimes when we talk of addiction, we think we narrow our thinking to just maybe substance abuse,
Drugs.
substance abuse, and let me say addiction to drinks, addiction to food, addiction to maybe sex and whatever, what we call vices. But there are a lot of things that we get addicted to that even society may not see them as a vice, but it's addiction in the sense that it tends to it tends to limit you. It tends to hold you back. It robs you of your freedom to fully express yourself. It could be like what I said, an idealism or an ideology, a pattern of thinking. It could be political. It could be cultural. It could be religious. So if we put all those, we classify all those into our definition of addiction, then some of these things we are born into. Some of them intentionally, we
Walk into them.
intentionally walked into, not knowing we could become overly dependent on them. And even as we now grow and mature in life, we begin to see we begin to have regrets, wanting to win at all costs.
Are we saying there is an addiction to succeed?
Yes, there is an addiction to succeed.
Yes, there is an addiction to succeed. Addiction, when we are talking about addiction in general, something came to my mind right now that addiction could be positive and can also be negative.
True.
We have addiction in both sides. So getting into addiction at first, based on the second question you asked, that can addiction be accidental or somebody can get into addiction deliberately and it can be unconscious. When you are doing something repeatedly and you find yourself that without doing this, you are not comfortable. So you can be doing it
without knowing that where is leading you to.
exactly, without knowing at first that this thing is taking you somewhere. So for somebody who can come to his or her conscious, it is when the person will know that I've become addicted in this. So you cannot do without it. If you have not done it, you will not be comfortable. Even sleeping, for example, now somebody may be sleeping at work. You may be addicted to it. That every day you must take a nap. So it's becoming addiction.
Habit.
Yes, it's becoming an addiction to someone's life, and it can also be in a positive way.
Okay, so you guys talked about addiction becoming positive. But I'm looking at addiction as something that comes and takes away your willpower, your ability to say no when you need to,
Mm.
the ability to tell yourself that enough, this thing is beginning to control and manipulate me. How can such become positive for anyone?
Okay, in that aspect now, we are talking about addiction. It is not when somebody is addicted to substances consumption. In that aspect, we can say that is the positive aspect of addiction.
Okay,
In a positive aspect of addiction is when you make yourself a go-getter, that when you want to get something, you want to achieve something in life, you have to press harder. You are the type that when somebody say no, you don't take no as an answer. You need to strive ahead to get the result that you want. Maybe a student in school now, maybe in a particular subject now, you are unable to make your desired score in your first examination. You still try to read more. Maybe reading can also be a positive way.
and that can that be an addiction? Can that be an addiction?
Yes, it can. It can. See, I will always go back to my
Definition.
initial definition. For me, an addiction is when one is overly dependent on certain lifestyle, substance, ideology. So one could, when you talk about reading, man must balance his activity at all times. And in trying to balance those your activities, you must be able to detach yourself. You must be able to have a holistic view about everything that you are involved in, be it work life, be it relationship, be it spiritual life, whatever. At any point in time, when you cannot have when you are involved in something and you cannot detach yourself and analyze what you are doing
Beautiful.
and say, okay, put boundaries to what you are doing and control your actions so you can determine the outcome. If you cannot do that, then you are addicted. Now, what you cannot control, somebody else will control. And if
Be-
somebody controls it, in most cases, the outcome is not what you would hope it should.
So how can that ever become positive?
It cannot be positive. That is what I'm trying to say. If
Okay.
we want to, you see, for lack of terminology, I'm going to say I'm addicted to winning. I'm addicted to success. I'm addicted to victory. I'm addicted to. Okay, fine, it's all good, but we know that now in the context of this, we're talking of addiction. If you want to go by that definition, when you are overly dependent on anything, be it what looks good, be it study, be it prayer, be it success, be it discipline, if you are overly dependent on it,
That means without it, you cannot.
without it, you don't feel yourself.
Exactly. You don't feel yourself.
It
You
is
don't feel.
is an addiction.
You don't feel normal because addiction is like there is a chemical in the brain called dopamine. When someone is excited or maybe listening to a music that excites you, dopamine is triggered, and there's something that is called reward system in the brain. It rewards you with happiness, with joy, with excitement. You understand? And when you probably somebody who has sex, dopamine is triggered, and you get rewarded for orgasm, excitement, pleasure, and all that. Satisfaction. Thank you. That is the word. somebody who takes drug, for example, you take it first time, dopamine is activated. And when you continue doing that, taking that stuff, it comes to a point that the extent of dopamine triggered in the brain will no longer give you that reward that you want until you take that stuff. So, like you said, overly dependent, you become only dependent. Your excitement, your happiness will now completely rely on that substance or that lifestyle or behavior, no longer the activation of that dopamine in your head. So dopamine becomes silenced completely in our. So I am bringing this up to try to measure it with being addicted to success. I want us to try and see another word or terminology that we could give to it, because addiction is so negative,
Yes.
because it is something that controls one, manipulates one, makes one lose their willpower, like I said before, to say no, this is no longer how I want it. This is now how I want it. Even addiction to another human being is there. There is an addiction to another human being when you realize that you cannot do without this person. You feel obsession. You feel not like you cannot, but you feel you cannot do without this person, and therefore you build your life all around on the person. So, what do you think is the solution to coming out of addiction?
Okay. Oh, that's a very great question. In that aspect, when somebody has become addicted to a particular lifestyle or taking of any substances, in some cases, let me say the Africa or generally, people think it has become spiritual. So people mix an addiction together with being bringing in spiritual life into an addiction. To come out of this, it is when the person realize, the person must first of all realize that he or she has been addicted to this particular lifestyle. So when you realize that this is where the problem is, that is when the solution can come in. So you try to make yourself to discover the problem.
Can addicted person make themselves to?
Yes, they do. They realize that they have been addicted, but to come out of it is now the problem.
Okay.
Because you see somebody telling you that no, he or she is being addicted to this, but the problem is to come out of it.
Okay,
You
so
see people walking to the therapist and say no, they want to go out of this, but there is no way they can have the solution to it.
so first and foremost, the person must
Discover.
realize that they are addicted.
Yes.
Okay. Do you have to say?
Okay, for coming out of addiction, for me, first let me start from this. The addict is the only one that can bring themselves out from that situation. No therapy, nothing. They are the ones that can bring themselves out of it. But but in most cases, it is let me use the word, the hard way, the only way. Now let me explain what I mean. Like what you rightly said, one must realize. In short, every addict knows they are addicted, because from time to time, when you involve yourself to the extreme in an activity or with the abuse of a substance, by the time there's like when you shoot a gun, there's a recoil. When you see the repercussion, you come back to your sense and say, no, I've messed up. You understand? So there's always this regret. Now I'm going to be very practical, because everybody has been addicted to one thing or the other at some time. So let's be very practical. The first step the addict must come to understand is that there is nothing wrong with what they are addicted to. You must know. If you don't know that, you can never get out of it.
I don't get that aspect. There's nothing wrong with it.
There is, let me say it again, there is nothing wrong with what you are addicted to.
Okay.
Let me tell you something. There is nothing wrong with sex. Is there? There's nothing wrong with sex. There's nothing wrong with drugs. In short, it has been proven that there are certain drugs. Okay, let's not even go too far. Let's take what's the drug they take for morphine? They take for pain. If someone that is undergoing extreme pain, if you give them morphine, it reduces the pain. They don't get addicted to it. But if somebody that is not undergoing that situation take that morphine, they get addicted to it. You are the one that is overly dependent on it. So you are the one abusing it. It's not that thing controlling you. You are the one that are giving your willpower to that thing. So first, step number one, there is nothing wrong with those things. Now, when you come to that point where you know that there is nothing wrong with those things, you begin to see those things in a different light. You begin to understand it in a different perspective. Now, step number two, you must understand that there is nothing that the connection between yourself and those things. Like somebody says, let me not quote scripture now. Let me try to use what we can all understand. You see, it is called willpower. Once you understand that there is nothing wrong with those things, the struggle to overcome stops. Do not struggle to overcome because there is nothing to overcome. You see, when you cease to struggle, number one, you know that there is nothing wrong with those things you are addicted to. Then you cease to struggle. When you cease to struggle, somebody say, are you saying that we should just continue? Please, if you have to continue. See, when you cease to struggle, you take away the power of that thing that you're struggling at. The problem we have is that people struggle to overcome addiction. I've not seen anybody that struggles to overcome addiction that actually overcame that addiction. Nobody does. Check your record. I can come back on this program. You can prove me wrong.
Okay.
Go
So,
back, check your record.
yeah.
Nobody struggles and overcomes addiction.
What do you have to say?
Like I mentioned earlier, that you just have to discover that he or she is a problem.
Okay.
And the problem needs to be solved.
Okay.
Some people do, based on the addiction, if it is something that is related to geopolitical zone now, and somebody wants to come out of it, some people do relocate based on they want to live that addiction life. So they can relocate to another side. They can go away from the environment in which they will not be having access to that particular, if it is substance,
Whatever.
they will not be having access to that particular whatever they are taking.
So when someone realizes that they are addicted, after that realization, what next?
Is to find means to stop that addiction.
Have you been addicted to anything before?
Yes. Let me just say yes.
Are you saying yes for real or
I'm saying yes now.
for real?
Yes, for real. I'm saying
How did you come out of it?
what?
Or are you still in it?
I'm still in it. But what I'm addicted to, no, what I'm addicted to is like it is not something that is causing harm to myself, to me.
What is it?
It's like watching football.
Calling out, bro.
Watching football now, I see it like an addiction.
Why is it an addiction? You have no control over it. It controls you.
I control. Anyway.
Does it control you?
No, it doesn't.
So it's not an addiction then. Can you what team do you support?
I support Chelsea.
Okay. If Chelsea is playing the Champions League final, for example, and you come into your sitting room and you see the game going on, and something is happening outside that requires your attention, what happens at that moment?
At that moment, I can suspend that thing that is happening. Said, if somebody is addicted to a particular lifestyle or anything, You say even if the person is taken to a therapist,
Yeah.
there's no solution the therapist can do about it.
Yes, this is what I mean. This is what I mean. What a therapist will do will still 90% of the work still depends on you. So even a therapy, there's nothing a therapist will tell you that you don't already know. But you need somebody to maybe like somebody to tell you take your drugs. Have you taken your drugs? You know what to do. Supposing you decide not to go and see the therapist, the therapist will not, he will not fight you, he will not beat you. The police, have you seen police drilling anybody because they are addicted to pornography or watching football? They won't jail you. So it's still your responsibility. So I'm not saying so your therapist is just like a guide, somebody to take you by the hand, advise you, don't give up, continue, don't give up, continue. If you decide to give up, there's nothing the therapist can do. So the boss lies in your court. That's what I mean. So I'm not saying fine, you can go to therapy, but if you do not go at any point in time, you decide to miss the session.
What happens?
It's still it's your responsibility to make that
Okay,
step.
so what you are saying in essence, first and foremost, what you are saying in essence is one, the substances have their positive use. It is only when you abuse them.
That's why it's called abuse.
It's called
It's not
abuse.
abuse of you, abuse of the substance.
What you are saying in essence is that there is nothing wrong with these things. Even weed has
Absolutely
its
nothing
own
wrong.
medicinal use,
Yes.
but when people abuse the use of these things, even falling in love, someone can abuse it
Of course.
and you become obsessed with the other person. Anything in life, so what you're saying in essence is that anything in life we abuse the use becomes wrong, but that thing itself is not wrong,
Exactly.
you know. So I think it has been a wonderful session. This is amazing. I think our moderator has been signaling us since because if we don't follow that signal, we can be on this for hours.
Yes.
You know, and it has been interesting. A whole lot of things have been said, and it has been really, 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 really interesting. If you have found yourself in the place where you have become a slave, I'm sorry about that. It is just sometimes these experiences come to help us learn a lot of things. You know, there is no experience we come across in life that is useless. No matter how bad they may look, they are not all useless. In fact, they are not even useless because they say experience is the best teacher. So what I always advise people is to pay attention to the lessons within the experiences. People tend to repeat experiences because they do not pay attention to the lessons that come from the experience. And when the lessons are not learned, like I always say, the classes are repeated. So they keep on repeating the process, going through the same experiences all over, all over, all over. But when we pay attention to the lesson that the experience has brought to you, you'll be able to know, okay, this had led me to this. Therefore, in my next step towards this, I will take the other step. You have learned the lesson. Okay, so if you are addicted out there, first and foremost, realize that you need help. When you realize that you need help, what you are simply saying is that this thing is not good for me. This thing is no longer serving a positive purpose for me. Once you can say that, 50% of the issue is resolved. What is the other 50% going to help you do? The other 50% is for you to tell yourself what you want. You have known what you don't want, which is your overly involvement in this thing that is no longer serving you. It is no longer serving you, therefore you don't want it. But what do you want? If you know what you don't want, you must know what you want so that you can channel your energy towards achieving what you want or towards attracting what you want. Okay, so first and foremost, know what you don't want, which is what you're addicted to. You no longer want it. Now define what you want. Once you are able to define what you want, then you start channeling your energy. It's not going to be an easy journey. It is not like, okay, what I want is no more cigarette, No more. What are the things people get addicted to?
Alcohol,
Gambling, you know. Okay, so I don't want these things. Don't wake up tomorrow and feel that that urge, that desire, that feeling will just vanish and escape from you. No. So you have, like you said, you have to put in the work. If you have to see a therapist, see a therapist. It is recommended. See a therapist. I am a therapist for that. And there are so many other therapists out there. So you must know that I don't want this, I want this. I must put in the work to make what you want come to you. Thank you guys. It's a wonderful, wonderful session.
thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would like to have you guys again. There's so much to talk about, but not on addiction.
Thank you
Right.
so much.
All right. So this is So Clinic with Dr. Spirit Size and his friends.